Hey guys!
Hey
I'm
guys,
Crystal.
I'm Eric.
We're with the Dog Psychology and Training Center. So today's live Q&A was based off of a question we get a lot, which is, so I send my dog to training. That's it, right? Like, that's all I have to do, right?
Not exactly.
Yeah, there's still more to it. Dogs are living creatures, and we'll get into all of the what's the word I'm looking for here? The
Curiosity.
yes, and because they are living beings and not robots, they are capable of making their own choices, good and bad, for the rest of their life. So today's topic is going to be really fun. We do these every week, Wednesdays at 7:30. So if you like what you see, share it to a friend who might benefit from it, and then tune in next week when we come with a new live Q&A. And because these are for you guys, we want to know what we can help you with. So if you have a question that you would like us to discuss for the next live, just let us know. Post it on our page, send us a message. There's ways to get a hold of us.
With your fingers mostly.
Wait, so we can't do call me, but what's the message me. yeah, with the phones. So if I send my dog to training, if I do a board and train, or if I do private lessons and the dog graduates training, is that it?
Hands off, right? It's cool.
My dog's done?
Programming is complete.
Doesn't have to learn anything ever again? We're being sarcastic because it's not true. Training is a lifelong commitment. Just like ourselves, we are constantly learning new things. We actually, as a company, support our trainers and us to go to continuing education workshops and seminars because we want to know as much as possible.
We're still learning.
That's how we help everyone and every dog that comes through our doors, is because we've taken so many different workshops that we may have taken it and thinking, I don't know if I'll use that. And then we meet that one dog and we're like, yes, that's what that workshop was all about. Right here, I got you covered. And so, you may graduate high school, you may graduate college, but you're never done learning, and neither are your dogs. So every minute of every day, your dog is learning. It could be learning, am I allowed to sneak away with this? He could be learning, mom's always watching me and I always have to listen. He could be learning, the kids left the door open, can I run outside? Or the kids left the door open, but every time I try to, mom catches me or dad catches me and I'm not allowed. So there's always that learning factor as life progresses, and as you have major life changes. Maybe you're expecting your first, or you're moving. It could be just moving down the block, but just that, or getting married. Those are good stresses in life, right? I mean, everybody wants those things, but they can be a bit chaotic in the planning phase. And your dogs feed off of that chaos, and they start to stress out, and they start to test the limits. So training's lifelong. So we often use the analogy with training that if, let's say, we're human, I have an addiction to chocolate, it's my weakness, and I want to eat healthier, I want to maybe lose a couple extra baby weight pounds, I could go to a personal trainer, meet with them every week, and he can tell me what to eat, how much to eat, what not to eat, what kind of exercises to do, how often to do them, for the length of time to do each of them, and I can do it during the training, but after I'm done, I still have to keep doing these things, or everything that I just put into that training is useless.
Yep.
It's pointless. Or the analogy we use with our board and trains, because we do all of the hard work as far as teaching your dog positive habits. It's almost like if I was able to switch bodies with a personal trainer, and he or she could eat all the healthy foods, cut all of my bad cravings like chocolate out of my diet, and exercise for me to get my body in its ideal state, and then hand my body back to me and say, no, you have to maintain it. I still have work to do.
And that's what it looks like when your dog goes home with you.
To a board and train, right. That trainer did all the hard work of, cutting those bad habits, and for the most part, but you never really cut them, but the cravings at least, and getting my body to that ideal state, but I still have to maintain it. And the same, like you said, for the dogs that go home. Once your dog graduates training, we have taught your dog good habits, but there might be there might be some bad cravings every once in a while that come back that your dog might want to test the limits, especially if
I'm
you
just
have
gonna
a
have
major
one
life
piece
change.
of chocolate. And then you have one piece of chocolate and you're like, I didn't gain any weight.
Or if
Or
you're
your
like
dog
me,
says-
you say, I'm just going to have one piece of chocolate and a half a bag later. You're like, oh, I should probably
Yeah.
put these away now.
I still feel okay. I'm gonna do that again tomorrow.
Right.
And your dog, you know, when they start doing these negative behaviors again, when they try, if that's not corrected, then they can very easily fall right back into, this is just what
It's
I
allowed.
do. I just chew on the furniture. I just pee in the house. That's what I do. Nothing happens. But you know, if you had that piece of chocolate and boom, you went right back to being 50 pounds overweight and you felt like turds, you'd probably not pick that up tomorrow.
That's a great, I wish life worked that way, but it doesn't. And it only takes about 50 pounds of chocolate consumption before I realize I gained 50 pounds of chocolate. So life doesn't work that way, and it doesn't work that way with your dogs either. But the more they get away with something, the more they're going to think it's okay. So what does life look like after training? When you send your dog to training, whether it's with us or any trainer you go to, in the midst of training, it's like, what is that? Elbows to grease or hitting the ground. What's a good a thing for like working hard? Like when you, I'm not good with these
Rubber
things.
to the road.
Maybe, yeah.
Something.
Yeah, when you're in the trenches of training your dog, the most difficult part of training your dog is changing habits. Because in order for your dog to have positive habits, you need to have positive habits about your relationship with your dog.
Yeah.
Same thing trying to get your kids to eat healthier. It wouldn't be fair to me to get out a plate of chocolate for dinner and then make my kids eat asparagus and broccoli. That's not fair. I have to eat asparagus and broccoli. I do like it, but I didn't always. And I had to eat it even when I didn't like it because I wanted to set a good foundation for my kids. The same is true for your dog. You may not want to get up and let them to go outside to go to the bathroom right now because it's an inconvenient time. But if you don't,
It may be hard to not console your dog when they're freaking out in an uncomfortable situation like a storm or there's something present that they don't like. But there's certain ways that you need to handle yourself to make sure that your dog stays in their ideal state.
So what we mean by that is sometimes with dogs, we get dogs for us, not for the dog. Like we didn't get the dog so that they can come and live a part of our wonderful life. We get a dog so that we can have a wonderful life because of them. And that's a lot of pressure to put on a pet. And so when you have these needs or wants like cuddling, if there's a thunderstorm, you want to definitely make sure you're not rewarding that dog's behavior for being fearful of a thunderstorm because they happen a lot and the chances of them being severe are very rare. It's not worth your dog's state of mind to be in a constant panic every time there's a thunderstorm. And just like with your kids, you know, our kids started school a couple years ago and they had, you know, the tornado warnings and stuff at school. We had a couple bad storms, almost 2 years ago, right? And our kids have never been afraid of the storms. We're from Indiana, so we have like real tornado warnings and sirens and lots. I mean, not that they're less real here, but they happen more frequently in Indiana. So
We're more accustomed to it.
Yes, and so the drills are more frequent at school. So we grew up with a healthy fear of storms, meaning if I'm outside and I have nowhere to hide, I'm terrified. But if I'm inside and the storm's outside and I have a good shelter, I'm fine. My only goal during a storm is to find shelter for me and the family and the dogs. That's it. After that, I'm cool. I love watching storms. I think they're beautiful, but I have a healthy fear for them. Our kids did too until they started school and they started feeding off of their friends. And now, like, our kids will hear thunder and they're like, I'm like, no, we're not having that irrational fear of a storm because storms happen a lot. It's not a healthy state of mind. So we talk about healthy fears. The same is true for your dogs. If you set those, I'm going to be honest, I don't know where I was going with this. I had a good idea and then I kind of lost my train of thought.
I think basically just, when, like, after your dog does a training program, like, they can be, like, you can get rid of a lot of these problem behaviors and your dog is acting, they're in a healthy state of mind, their manners are improved, but you've got to make sure that you are still being a good leader to them and that you are showing them what's appropriate ways to act, good and bad. Otherwise, you can very quickly you can essentially train your dog to go back into those old behaviors, or just allow it to happen because you weren't paying any attention.
So a good analogy, we use a lot of kid analogies because we are family dog trainers. That's what we do. We work with kids, or we work with dogs in kid homes, right? And for our families that don't have kids, kids are everywhere, so we still want to be prepared for them. But it's very similar to kids at school, right? If we sent our kids to school and they were learning how to read, but we never let them read at home, or we never worked with them when they were reading at home, they may never learn to read, and we would never, like, it would be our fault. It's not school's responsibility if our kid doesn't read at home and never learns how to read, right? They can only do so much, and that's it. Their hands are tied. It's our responsibility to have story time at home and to hear our kids audibly speaking the words, to know they're getting it, they're catching on. And if they stumble, to support them and say, oh, you were so close, but it's actually, this way, or whatever it is. And the same is true for dogs. When they go home, they're gonna have a great foundation, but it's gonna be your responsibility to maintain it and to make sure that those expectations that you set for your dog are continuously met. Not excused because it's inconvenient or you weren't paying attention, or whatever it may be. You have a responsibility. It's just a lot less of a responsibility if we train your dogs for you. So yeah, I think that's where I was going with my first thing, and then
We
got
off
lost
a
in
little bit.
La La Land. It happens. So the other thing we want to talk about is the differences. Like, sometimes you'll take your dog to training, or dogs will come here to be trained at our house, so they get to be put in a real life household. Like, our kids run around sometimes half naked when they're potty trained, or they have food in their hands, or they spilt food on the floor, or
Throwing toys when they ain't supposed to be
they
throwing
have squeaky
toys.
toys that are kid toys and not dog toys, but it's very confusing to dogs because, like, it squeaks. And so real life happens here, and we train dogs here because we want to make sure if our dog can listen at your house, we know they can listen at your house, versus when we had a sterile training center like a lot of trainers have. What I mean by sterile is that we didn't have kids half nude running around and us chasing after them for potty training. We didn't have
The hard floor
us
that
cooking
was
dinner.
cleaned. There was nothing on it. A big open space.
We didn't have toys.
Yeah.
We weren't in the middle of cooking dinner or have a random guest at the front door that we weren't expecting, because it was our place of employment. It was a business. Like, nobody showed up unless they had an appointment. So we were never caught off guard, like life, what happens in real life. So even when we had that, we had, dogs would go home and they would do all the things that we trained them not to do, because we never had an opportunity to truly work on jumping with a random guest at the front door when we were frantic and frazzled, like you are as a homeowner when you have somebody come to your door. If I was at a training center and I said, hey Sally, show up at 3:30 so I can work on this dog's doorway manners, I'm prepared, and the dog knows that. And I can try to act frazzled, but it's not the same as when you really are frazzled and somebody's at your door. And even here, where we have that real life happening and your dog works through it, they still know that this is school. This is a schoolhouse, right? This is where they're learning. It's almost like a boarding school where you would send your kids. They live in almost like a house environment. So when they go home, it's not that our house was different. It's that our house rules were different, and your house rules were a particular way before your dog left. So when they go back, even though they learned our house rules, they're going to say, oh, but at home I was always allowed to jump. You didn't want them to. You just didn't communicate in a way they understood not to. So they didn't think it was a boundary.
And with kids, thinking about how kids think and how they act, when our kids are at home, they know what the rules are. They know what time bedtime is, and when you have dinner, then we brush teeth and we do this and that. But when they go to Nana's house or Grandma's house, maybe they're gonna try and jump on the bed when they know they're not supposed to. They're gonna try and ask for desserts Stay up till 10. Hey, can we stay up till 10 o'clock and watch movies and eat ice cream? Like, they're gonna try all these things, and some of the things they're gonna get away with.
Probably most.
But they know that the rules are different here and at other places, at other places that they've been to before.
Yeah.
So dogs are very, very similar. We can, if we sent them here and they learn all the rules, when they go back into a home that they're familiar with, they're still going to think, but I know the set of rules here. So they're going to try all those things.
Yeah.
And you need to make sure that you set the boundaries and you communicate clearly that that is not okay, but this is what you should be doing.
Yeah, it's perfect. And so Does that mean that once your dog goes home for training, they're never going to learn your new house rules? No. And that's part of our training process. Our
Right.
follow-ups are our most important thing, because it's after your dog goes home. We want you to come back a week later and tell us, how was it? Did they try to test those boundaries? And there's always one, like, dogs will do great going home except for like one thing, and it's different for every dog. Sometimes it's the place command. They'll be like, oh, I only know how to place at Crystal and Eric's.
Yep.
I don't know how to place here. It's like we had them placing everywhere. And when we say everywhere, we mean at our house, at Home Depot, at Tractor Supply, downtown, everywhere. But all of a sudden at home, they never had to before. So they're like, no, I don't know how. And they'll pretend like they don't know how.
Just
and then
like a little kid would.
we'll have a little chat with the owners, troubleshoot, walk you through it, and then they'll go home, and guess what? Their dog places. So it's just communication, and sometimes dogs, just like kids, can be very manipulating, and they'll pretend like they don't know how. So we work with you step by step to get through the aftercare of training, to make sure that your dog is on track and that you get it. Because we cover, dog training is simple, but simple doesn't mean easy, right? There's a lot to dog training. That's why you hire a professional, because we've trained for years to have all the knowledge that we have working with dogs. So we don't expect you to get it all in 2 weeks. That's impossible. We don't expect you to get it all in 2 months. It's impossible.
It's a process.
But as you live life with your dog, you will continuously learn with us here. Like, you're part of our family now. We're always going to be here for you. So let us know, email us, have a follow-up, whatever it takes, group social. So after your dog graduates, we have group lessons that happen once a month all over town to practice real life in a real situation in public. So, but that's the aftercare. So
Life
training,
after your initial training.
Training is important, but the aftercare is just as important, as making sure your dog understands the new boundaries and the new rules that you just set into place.
Is it gross that I can smell Morgan and I like it?
I hope that helps clarify some of the stigma.
Expectations.
Yeah, that after your dog goes to training, you're done.
Yeah.
Like, your dog's perfect and you never have to do anything else again, that your part's done. It's a
If that
family
was the
dynamic.
case, I think we'd charge a lot more.
Cool. Let us know if you have any questions with this. If you thought this was really helpful, and maybe you know somebody who sent their dog to training and their dog is still struggling after training, this would be a great video to share with them, so they can know how to get their dog back on track after training.
That's Morgan.